Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for having me over today. Great to be here, third time in a row. Every year we have had a very deep and a very exhilarating engagement with the IMAI and the CDO conference session. It's been fabulous, a great journey. We've been learning a few things. Of course, I'm assuming that the people who come here learn a few things when they go back and have some things to tell their organization when they get back on what they saw, what they heard, and what they saw here and met here. Ladies and gentlemen, today the topic of my 15-minute spiel to you is about how to successfully scale digital innovation to drive growth. It's a topic which is of interest to many people. It's something that we realize is not working too well, and how do we know that is because of this. There is something like RODI, there's a term called Return on Digital Investments, and we figured through a worldwide survey about 3 years ago that a lot of the firms, almost 80% of them, are not really being able to get returns on their business and returns on the investments that they're making on digital, and the SOAR is actually becoming the SORE and not so much the SOAR as we just talked about. It's not working. And that got us thinking as consultants on what could be the reasons for which some of the firms, namely 22 of them out of the 100 typically, which are working well, they're getting the returns, and the other 80 are actually not being able to get to the expected, the returns that they are supposed to get. There's a book which has been circulated on your tables, which has a summary industry-wise on what our findings were. You may want to read and see some of them as I walk through some of it while I speak today. In a consultative sort of role, some of the things that I tell you today might seem cliched, might seem pedantic, prescriptive, but hopefully the structure that I put for you and hopefully some thoughts that you may see today may be worth reflecting on for you to get back and do some things back in your firm. We, after our research, called a few set of people as champions. They're the people who have actually succeeded. And we got to try and answer 3 questions as to why these firms really succeed. And we realized that there are 3 parts to it, right? There's an axis. It is a part of why do these firms think they need digital? Do they define the positioning, the role, and the key success factors that are required of running a digital activity in their firm very well? And it's very, very unique. Obviously, execution is relevant, and we also realize that the how and the where of how they go about the digital journeys, where they actually come up with digital interventions, are also critical. And finally, what are the kind of specific levers they deploy in order to make these journeys successful? Pardon me if in my speech or in my talk, the examples and the thoughts are slightly manufacturing product-centric, because that's my background and that's where a lot of the research was done. However, the thoughts here are equally applicable to service industries, banking, and what have you. So the question was, if there is a global best practice, right, a global best practice for digital deployment, and I was thinking, what could be a greatest and the best example of that, which all of you in this room could associate with, which is industry agnostic, very relevant, has the greatest and the best exemplar of interconnectedness, sensorization, advanced analytics, and data supply chain, data management. What could be the best example of that? After about a couple of days of research, this is what I came up with. And by the way, this is the example that I thought would also best resonate with the CEOs and the CXOs who are grappling with what is digital for them. And here is what I came up with. I thought of what is called a TCAS for business, right? It is perhaps the most advanced that I know of and relevant to every one of you, maybe even 90% of you who flew in yesterday to Bombay, of a most advanced, robust, intelligent decision support system for managing complexity, uncertainty, and aiding speed and lowering risk in your business. And here is what it is, right? This is what it is. It's simple. All of you have heard of this, right? This is the map of the Indian airspace on the November 17, 2019, and this is going to become even more crowded. And I can tell you what, this example set me thinking, and I think if this is what is a great example of what digital and its most advanced form and shape can give you, then all of you should actually be trying to make this happen. You should be challenging your businesses, right, to actually develop lower order versions of TCAS. And by the way, it's possible now. The TCAS in its current form took almost 50 years to build, right? It's also evolving even now as we speak. As late as 2003, 2004, we had an air collision, mid-air collision, but it happened, right? But the fact is that if you look at what TCAS does, a most relevant form of a digital implementation should accomplish something for you in this type and look and feel for engineering, product development, your own supply chains, manufacturing operations, and your customers. It is the best example of it. It is, I'm told, built on a very, very robust platform of the most advanced versions of analytics with a group of MIT engineers who keep working on it every day. It uses some reinforcement, dynamic programming techniques, but that's what it is. But the fact is this is what you should all be thinking about. If this is what is the state of the art? That got me to the champion thing of the 3 rules. What are the 3 rules on why digital for my firm? And I realized that there were 3 broad levels to why digital. Clearly, the first point everybody thinks about is if I'm embarking on a digital journey, I need to position it right. And I need to have the right positioning of it, telling the world, telling my customers, telling my own employees, and leading on to what some of the thoughts that Sangeeta expressed. Why should I tell my employees to absorb and internalize digital in their firm? The second one was going to be about the role of digital, right? A digital is going to be an adjunct to what you already do as your firm and is your dominant vector of success in the business today, right? It is not something that you're going to do on the side. It's not something that's going to be peripheral to your business. It's going to aid, it's going to improve, and it's going to only accelerate and buoy your current and core business model and your core business success model, right? It's going to be a catalyst for innovation, no doubt. And by the way, 2 key success factors which I thought were most relevant from my 4.5, 5 years of consultative experience in this space were about the aligned business case, and that a real differentiator, if you're looking for in digital, will take time. You have to necessarily set realistic and robust expectation of this journey. Clearly, I also realized that some of the firms who were successful in these, the champions, were defining what it is not. Right? And some of them are sort of listed here. It's not a gizmo, it's not a product. Copy-paste doesn't work. It is your business where you're going to make digital relevant to your business, make it true, relevant, and customized. That's when it works best. A couple of sort of concepts that I want to talk about before I step into the next level of champion thing is the whole point of business complexity, right? How many of you know that your business every day, literally every day, becomes more and more complex for reasons of you having to launch more products, you having to acquire more customers, you having to launch more geographical regions of business of interest, you having more vendors, launching more factories, having bigger supply chains. And by the way, you end up having a business which looks like almost an underground railway management system, right? There are many parts, there are many value streams. Each value stream is owned by someone, but the fact is that the way you as individual in a business works and sees it this way, right? You know what you're going to do. You worry about your KPIs, and therefore what it leads to is a mesh of many value streams interconnected to each other, all relevant to business, but not necessarily giving the same answer to the business. And that leads to the following, right? It leads to a business which is somehow successful, luck and fortitude maybe. There's a safety margin built in every portion of your business because everybody has their own silos to worry about. And there are delays. One value stream has to supersede the other. Which one to go by, nobody knows. And there are no governed rules, and nobody has enough information and transparency about what's going on where. And that eventually all leads to customer angst. By the way, this picture on the left side, on the right side, is the picture of the New York subway. It's perhaps, after the Tokyo subway, the most advanced digitized automated system, or digitalized, automated, and heavily analyzed automated system of running subway as a system. And I urge you to think about your business, close it after the TCAS as this business rather than the business on the picture on the right. The second important concept of digitalization, where it works, and I'm coming to something where I want to tell you why I'm bringing you these concepts is something called the prime value chain. And by the way, this is a very typical manufacturing value chain as it's shown here. But even in the banks or housing finance, mortgage firms, any other firm, right? If you think hard, you will be able to create a red line which runs through your organization, which defines the core reasons of your success, the core processes that create a success, a reason for your customer satisfaction in your firm, right? And you must know it. And everybody should know it, because the reason for which your digital journeys are going to succeed or fail is your knowledge and your proclivity and your proximity of applying digital to some of these areas. That takes me to champion think point number 2. What are the rules for execution, right? And I realized that when some of these digital firms that took on projects, that they took on interventions, one of the most important things they did was did a very painstaking and a very assiduous build of a portfolio of relevant interventions, all obviously predicated on getting more profitability and more value. It has to be that. It has to be about value. It has to be very carefully thought about. It has to be about a portfolio of relevant interventions. Now, taking back to what I said, getting what are the rules of execution can be, there are 4 areas. You should target these 4 areas. You should challenge everything that's in your business, challenge all safety measures, challenge all historical assumptions that have been made, definitely enable transparency across all the function silos. And by the way, the most important point, I think, which makes the biggest difference in any successful value-driven digital intervention is it has to have intelligence in it, right? Just because you've got sensors and you've got visuals of that sensor on a dashboard, typically gets you some value, may not necessarily get you all the value. The second important point on the slide, ladies and gentlemen, is that all of this has to be meant for your prime value chain. I'm not for a moment saying that don't do your digital attendance management systems, digital knowledge management systems, digital reward and recognition management system. All of those are critical. All of them will yield some value, no doubt. But if you want the big and the mega bucks, focus on your prime value chain. Get the digital interventions seamlessly, get inside those, and get you the value. And therefore, the exam question is always, for many of us, do I do experience or do I do interventions for value, right? And my answer is yes, experience is important. And digital will get you the experience, but if you're looking for inordinate supernormal returns, sometimes please go for the prime value chain driven interventions. Champion Think 2.2. Like the TCAS, it has taken 40 years to evolve. It is evolving even now. It takes time, it takes effort. But make it something which is a part of your normal running business, right? Think of it as a continuous improvement exercise, which we all ran for many years, which we all called TPM, TQM, ISO, Lean, Six Sigma, whatever. Just build these solutions as a part of that journey. Let not people think that digital is something external, which is going to look at your business and going to somehow find its way into the business. It's not going to matter that. It's not going to work that way. Make this whole exercise of execution be nothing but a part of your continuous improvement journeys, right? Have the courage to scale. 80% solutions are fine. 80% solutions are fine. If you don't apply the 80%, friends, you'll never get to the 95%. I can tell you what. The techniques, the algorithms, the speed at which they are getting run today on a TCAS system were not the same as what they were 5 years ago and 10 years ago. And it continuously evolves and makes it even better, right? One of the last and the most important things, whatever you build as a man-machine interface for your digital solutions, right? Keep the man-machine interface, look, feel, relevance important. Don't give enough thought to it. It'll struggle to scale up. It'll struggle to get industrialized and institutionalized in your firm. Finally, the scale and the sustain answer, right? These are things that are typically known, right, to all of you, right? There's an aspect of having to create the required infrastructure, the hardware, the skills, the shared and the collaborative views, the ecosystem of partners, right? But But people tend to not necessarily look at them as important as they are, right? They just ignore them for later. Let me first get a POC working, and then I will decide what has to be done. It doesn't work. You have to immaculately and proactively give attention to detail to these answers and these questions as well, apart from the one that I just spoke about in the last couple of slides, right? The last point on the box about processes and metrics to track returns, easier said than done. You need an organization, you need time, and you need a set of people who do that for you. But it's just so important to get the behaviors of people sort of set right. So these are some of the 3 champion things that our research told us about what successful digital scaling is all about. I spoke about 3 things. One was, how do the leaders position digital in their firms? What do they tell their employees, tell their customers, tell their vendors, tell their ecosystem partners? Point number 1. Point number 2, how do they build that journey up, right? What do they do? What is the specific interventions they make? Clearly driven by value, driven by methods to reduce complexity, which is getting ingrained in your business every day, adding speed, adding simplicity, and by the way, also creating a change management-driven solution as they go along. Finally, the levers that are traditionally known about having to get the required infrastructure and people capabilities in place. So that's about it. Thank you very much, all of you. Hopefully this has been useful. Go find, build, and scale your TCAS in your respective firms. Good luck. Thank you.